Good morning, afternoon, or good evening, folks. I'm your host and guide, Chris Roberts. I'm going to take you on a tour of the underground to help you prepare for what's really out there. Whether you're on the front lines battling the latest threats or leading the overall defensive strategy within your organization, my focus is to help you uncover the best ways, means, and methods to effectively and efficiently use actual threat intelligence within your company, providing you with more insights and practical ways to identify threats and reduce risks before they become incidents. Ready to dive in? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending upon where you're coming in from. Welcome to another episode of the Dr. Dark Web. I am going to be like a mad, overly caffeinated squirrel this evening because my camera's here, my computer's here, my system I'm looking at's over there, and I'm adjusting lights over there, and the other one's running over there, so I have no clue what the hell is going on. So if I'm looking in different directions at the same time, it is what it is for this evening. As always, I am joined by my amazing co-host, Dani, who is here as well. And I'm looking at her over there, but she's over here. So it is what it is. And we have, if you'd like to say hello as well, please.
Hello, everybody. And I'm excited because we have Ilana on today. Hi, Ilana is our amazing analyst over at Cybersixgill. And she has some pretty juicy stuff to talk about today. So I will shut up and mute.
You're recovering. Let's be honest. You're recovering. You are out jollying it in Barcelona for several days, running around the place, having an amazing time, sending pictures, and now you're recovering. We're just going to leave it at that.
I am.
Ilana, good to have you back on again. Thank you so very, very, very much for coming back on again. And as Dani said, we're going to do something a little bit different this evening. It's kind of another geek session. And this one's more focusing on a couple of different reports that Cybersixgill puts out on a regular basis called Beyond the Headlines. And Lana, if you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit of a background as to kind of why these exist, what the logic is, what the reasons, whys, and wherefores.
Yes, sure. So the Beyond the Headline reports are specific reports that we publish on a daily basis to our customers. And we cover different kind of topics on the cybersecurity world. It can be major attacks that occurred recently. I can also discuss major developments from specific threat actors and especially ransomware gangs, which are known for being prominent actors. And I can also discuss major and critical vulnerabilities in specific products widely used by organizations, but also vulnerabilities that can occur and exist in the threat actors' specific tools, in their ransomware, their encryption tool, or their malware in general.
Now, you're doing these on a daily basis. I mean, you're putting a new one of these out every single day. Am I right in saying that?
Yes. I publish the reports every day.
That's a lot of work.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
it's
that's
also
a lot of work and a lot of research.
Yeah, there's a lot of research, but it also varies. Like I cover different kind of topics every day. I always learned with it, and I dive deeper to understand more about specific events, attacks, on modus operandi of specific threat actors, and it's very interesting.
Got it. We've got three. There's three that we're kind of looking at. I'm going to go through probably the one that most of us will recognize the name on, which is Dark Crystal. The Dark Crystal, if you're like from the 80s and 90s. But Dark Crystal to me, I remember running into this a couple of years ago, a pretty nice, like very feature-rich Trojan that gave the ability to do all sorts of interesting stuff. And here we are again, early second quarter of 2022, talking about it again. And from what you're showing or from what you're saying, this is like cut price, cutthroat version of this. I'm interested, A, how did you find it? And B, give me the thoughts on why, if I put my CISO hat on for a second, why this is important to me.
Yes, Dark Crystal Remote Access Trojan is a new tool that was highly advertised on underground forums. As you can know, threat actors are continuously changing and developing new malicious tools that they advertise on underground forums with the hacking community. And this time I spotted a remote access Trojan, specific remote access Trojan, which is called Dark Crystal. And his particularity is that the malicious tool is sold on dark web forums at a very low price, according to the general pricing list. of hacking tools. And we can find licenses going from $5 for a bi-monthly license to $21 for an annual license to at $40 for a lifetime license, which is very cheap for this kind of tools, which enables a lot of malicious actions and to launch also distributed denial of service attacks on victims.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy pricing. I mean, I know from, just to give the audience some context on this, I mean, a lot of us have been following these things for years. You go back, I mean, numerous years when it was, X amount of hundreds for the tool, X amount of hundreds for a certain amount of time on the command and controls, and then, you pay for different things, or you pay a percentage or whatever you're doing. This is crazy pricing. I mean, this is like walking down your high street and seeing that 95% off of the mattress or the sofa, everything must go kind of pricing. This is crazy. I mean, give us some context on this. I mean, what's the logic? Are we getting bargain basement tools or what's going on here?
So yeah, it's quite uncommon behavior and uncommon finding on the ground because, as you say, the general pricing for such tools very, very much more expensive than that for specific reasons. But I think that in such cases, the developer of this remote access Trojan may want to increase his reputation among the cybercriminal community. And this is why he sets very low prices for this tool in order to gain credibility and to increase his reputation as a threat actor. And then afterwards, I think that he may develop further features and plugins to this remote access Trojan and assign higher prices to it.
So we're seeing traditional sales tactics. I mean, we've seen them on and off a little bit on the darker side of the net, but it looks like we're seeing traditional sales tactics being used now on the darker side. I mean, if somebody new is coming in and somebody, to your point, wants to get a name for themselves, wants to corner a bunch of the market, maybe wants to take over the mass attack as opposed to the individuals. I mean, this is a perfect tool for doing this. And it looks like it's got a very, very feature-rich suite of architectures. So again, I put the CISO hat on, as opposed to now being attacked every now and again by very, very sophisticated, you've basically put a very feature-rich set of tools in at a next to nothing price. So you've taken the barrier of entry considerably down. So if I got my CISO hat on, I should be concerned about this because now there are more sophisticated tools in the hands of adversaries.
Yes, actually, this is a rising risk because now a lot of threat actors and cyber criminals can afford themselves very feature-rich tools at very low prices and has the ability to launch devastating attacks or to retrieve very sensitive data from their victim, even if they are not experienced threat actors and even if they are not willing to pay for a high price.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of feedback on it as well. I was reading through the report that you put together, the feedback both on the darker side of the net and also just on stuff like GitHub, on various other forums as well, where people are looking at it, evaluating it. Some are saying, hey, it's great. And others are like, it's too slow. It doesn't do everything necessary. It gets hit by antivirus. This is assuming your antivirus is updated and patched and all these other good things. So it's really interesting on this one to see that somebody would literally undermine the market so extensively on this.
Yes, actually, we can see that each time that a new tool is emerging on the underground, we can see a very big flood of reactions from threat actors that are discussing the specific tools and giving feedback about the tool, the credibility of the tool, and the efficiency, the quality of the tools. And I have observed that for this specific remote access Trojans, the opinions are a bit mixed. I mean that some threat actors are very satisfied with these tools, while others are most expecting that this tool is poor quality and is also very detected apparently by antiviruses and defense mechanisms.
Got it. Again, that's assuming your defense mechanisms and antivirus are up to date and can detect stuff anyway, which unfortunately a lot of people's aren't. So I want to change gears, if you don't mind. I want to go to one of our old friends, Lazarus Gang. This is a report that you put out yesterday by the looks of it. I got the date on it is May 23rd. So this is yesterday's report that our old friends from Lazarus are doing a whole bunch of work on the Log4j vulnerabilities. I mean, we all know the Log4j thing came out, and kind of like iHeart and Bleed and all the other stuff that was out there as well that should have been patched. There's obviously a ton of places that still haven't patched it, and it looks like Lazarus is taking full aware of all that one. So yeah, give me your thoughts on this if you don't mind.
Yes, sure. So yes, as you said, I've observed yesterday that one of the most prominent ransomware gangs, which is active for a very long time, since say 2009, has been observed exploiting the famous Log4j vulnerability that was discovered in December in 2021 and has literally shocked the security community as well as the cyber criminal community because of the high exploitation chances that it offers. And so, yes, this ransomware gang has been observed leveraging the Log4j vulnerability as the initial attack vector in order to conduct espionage operations on specific victims, and by deploying a malware which is called nuke spread, and gather sensitive information from the victims, the keystrokes, screenshots, and all the activity that the victim is carrying out.
Yeah, I was actually reading. I was looking through the report. Leo, you do a really nice job, by the way, and thank you. I'm looking, going, okay, here's the organization, here's some of the history, here's where they've been doing things, and now let's look at where they're actually attacking. They're taking obviously Log4j, they're combining with a number of other things, and you're seeing a bunch of intel running through that. So I'm interested on that one. So for me, as you're looking at these, how are you cross-referencing? How are you following the rabbit hole? Someone a better way of putting it. What are you using to do that? Talk to me about the tactics that you use to build something like this report, because there's a lot of information in this report. There's a lot of data in there. So I'm interested in how you are taking a lot of information and basically building this.
Yes, sure. So first, I have observed that a specific notorious ransomware gang is still exploiting and trying to exploit the Log4j vulnerability. And from this information, I try to dive deeper to see on underground markets and forums to observe the trends regarding the exploitation of the Log4j vulnerability. And I actually found out that this vulnerability is very, very exploited and discussed on underground forums, which indicates that the vulnerability is still at high risk and that organization may still be very vigilant and implement good security practices in order to mitigate the attack surface on their corporate environment. Because the Log4j vulnerability is a strong and powerful initial attack vector that may enable any threat actor to perform wide-scale attacks.
I mean, you pointed out here, I mean, you have a nice section in here which goes into, there's somebody on a forum asking for help with their tool and Log4j while they're attacking a bank. And I think this is where it gets really interesting is, you know, the bank is not a small organization. It's a very well-known organization. And for me, this is like, hey, this is a wake-up call, which is, as leaders within organizations and as technical people within organizations reading this is necessitating us taking a step back going, hey, we're seeing an uptick in Log4j. We're seeing an uptick in activity. What have we done? Can we go back? Can we revalidate that we've done what we need to do? Because there are people actively exploiting this inside a fairly well-known set of organizations. So I love the fact that this is here. I love the fact there's real world scenarios on here and you go through and you explain on this one. And as you said in here very, very succinctly, which is like months after Log4j came out, we're still seeing a significant number of attacks against it. I do wish more people would read these. That would be my takeaway on some of this.
Yes, indeed. I've observed that threat actors are constantly targeting companies and organizations from critical infrastructures. And this time I have observed a cyber criminal trying to launched an attack on a major Spanish bank. And the initial attack vector chosen for this attack was the Log4j vulnerability. And the threat actor was asking assistance from his peers in order to get help about how to successfully breach the company and then perform a wide-scale attack on this known bank. So generally, the threat actors are very responsive or very reactive, and they do not hesitate to provide help and tips about the operations to make in order to successfully breach companies.
Yeah, it's frustrating when we see this, which kind of brings us to the third one that you have, which is, again, it's another one where we've gone forward, but we're looking back again. Emoted. Emoted has been around for what, 8-9 years, give or take a little bit now? I mean, Emoted, we thought we'd gotten rid of Emoted until like earlier this year when it kind of went nuts again. And you've again put a great report together, which is explaining like, look, here's the history, here's what it is, here's where it is. Again, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Why choose this subject? And then why and what are you seeing on this?
Yeah, so Emoted was also a very important and major topic because it's considered as one of the most prominent malware ever documented. It's very powerful malware that is self-propagating from victim to victim and has been refined in the beginning of 2022 with more sophisticated capabilities, specifically social engineering capabilities as a first initial attack vector. So the Emotet is disseminated now in via phishing emails, malicious emails, and the operators of the malware have been refined all their capabilities and developed these emails in multiple languages in order to target a wider scale of victims and also try to hijack, intercept legitimate mailing conversation in order to pose as a legitimate email. So the operators are gathering all the conversation thread of the emails and send the Emoted virus via a malicious email that seems to be a continuity of the legitimate conversation in order to gain the trust of the victim, because gaining the trust of the victim is one of the biggest challenges of cyber criminals. So this is how Emoted's operator have decided to refine their techniques in order to reach bigger amount of victims.
Yeah, I mean, you pointed out here that it went from, 3,000 messages per month being tracked and monitored to 30,000. And I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's when you start taking a look at the amount of victims, the amount of attacks, and then the sophistication of those attacks. You say in here, I mean, perfect example is, Imhotep's switching basically to 64-bit loaders. So you've seen now that they've taken, obviously they got taken down, a year or so ago. They've taken that time, they've taken a step back, they've reevaluated, they've rebuilt, and they've made it much more sophisticated. The architecture is much more resilient, much more redundant, and we're having a heck of a lot harder time finding it, and yet the scale of attacks has just exponentially increased. Again, it's another one, if I take my researcher hat off and take the Dr. Dark Web hat off and put my CISO hat on, when I look at something like this, I need to look at it and go, I understand it. What do I do? How do I do it? What can I do about it? And what's the call to action? In other words, what can I do on my endpoints, my perimeter, my intrusion detection, my deception technology? What can I do with my threat intelligence to help me better combat some of this? Because it's huge when you start taking a look at the attack vectors on this. And they've done a really, really nice job of building it well. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so as I always said, I think that all organizations should put their people first also in the battle against cyber criminals and against cyber attacks. And in such cases, as we see that the operators of Emotet have been deploying high capabilities to target specific victims and to lure the victims to gain the trust of the victims, I think that this is where the people can actually block the threats, of course, in addition to technologies and the security capabilities. But I always say and think that people are the first wall facing cyber threats. And as such, all the companies should train their people. I think it's very important to train them staff in order to be aware of the emerging threats and also remain aware of all the developments of major operators of the malware. As we can see now that Emoted is now pivoting to more sophisticated social engineering techniques. So people should also increase their vigilance and the capabilities of their organization as a team of the humans in order to block these threats and increase the diligence and the vigilance of all the staff.
Yeah, I mean, you said it on here. You've said it really, really nicely, which is, I mean, this is a couple of perfect storms coming together. One, more sophistication, better tactics, now running in multiple languages, and also at a time of the year, especially in the United States, where it's tax season. So everybody is getting ready to see documents and receive documents and send documents. And they're asking people for documents and they're asking this flows of emails. As you've said on here, Imatep has basically been able to get into the middle of some of those conversations, almost show itself as part of that conversation chain and just add documents and inject documents in. So it's that perfect storm. I'm looking from an email with a PDF and an attachment on it, and I'm going to see it and I'm going to click on the darn thing before it's too late. And unless I've been trained to ask more questions or think before I click or anything else, yeah, they've done a nice job on it. As terrible as it sounds, they've done a very, very nice job on it. And they've released it at a very, very vulnerable time. I want to touch on something you talked about, which was the human element again. Give me some thoughts, because I mean, these are three great reports. These will land on the desk of intelligence operators, people using Cybersixgill, and potentially the CISO's desk. How much are you seeing leadership and technologists interact with these and use these or ask you for more questions? Are you seeing much feedback or not so much feedback?
We actually see significant feedback because most organizations are very concerned about the arising threats. But sometimes, because of the cyber criminals are switching and developing very fast, it's sometimes challenging to follow their rhythm and to adapt to their capabilities and to develop strong security awareness. And that's why we are here, to proactively detect the threats and detect the risk before it occurs as actual attack.
Yeah. I think it's, to your point, it's the human element, it's the education and the awareness. And then at a technology level, two of these, in fact, probably all three of them to some degree, but at least two of these that you've highlighted are technologies that we have the capability to remediate against, be it ingress filters or egress filters, knowing what's leaving the organization, be it movement within assets and within systems, be it education and awareness. We have the tools to deal with a lot of this if we would more effectively and more capably actually implement them. And this is what I like about this. This is, you wrap these all up by saying, hey, here are some key takeaways. Here are some things you need to think about. And this isn't doing this like out of hopelessness. This to me is doing this like, hey, we know what's coming, we know what it is, and there's ways of actually dealing with it. I think this behooves all of us in the industry to read these and go, okay, it's a continual thing. I got statistics, I have awareness, and now I've got better justification for why I need to keep actually working on this journey, which is security. Yeah, these are really, really nice, and I appreciate them very much so.
Yes.
So tell me, what's coming up next? What's next? I got yesterday's. I haven't had today's. What's coming up next? What are you focusing on for like the next couple of weeks? I'm interested.
I've seen significant developments of some major ransomware gangs. So I am monitoring these developments and linking the dots, as we say, in order to understand the full picture, because I think that significant developments are occurring in the last weeks and will keep occur in the next few weeks and few months.
Got it. No, I appreciate that. Actually, that is a question. Obviously, we had a good conversation not that long ago when you gave some great insight into what was happening with the Russian teams, the Ukrainian teams, and various other things. Are you still seeing a massive focus on those two sets of organizations going head to head, or are they basically saying the war is still ongoing, we still need to put food on the table, we're going back to business?
So yeah, unfortunately, the cyber warfare between the two opponents' countries is still occurring, and I've observed that major cyber criminal groups, specifically activist groups, are launching cyber attacks one to another. So it's a battle that's still ongoing, and we expect that it will increase in the future because it doesn't seem to calm down and show no signs of slowing down anyway.
Got it. Understood and appreciated. I'll look forward to reading those reports. I mean, these have been fantastic, and I have greatly appreciated the time running through these. It's been fantastic. And to your point, and to reiterate, you do these on a daily basis. I mean, this lands in the inbox of anybody hanging out with the Cybersixgill folks on a daily basis, yes?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. I know I read some of them. I think I'm going to have to read more.
Of course.
Yeah, so it is gratefully appreciated. Ilana, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us again. I look forward to doing this again with you very, very soon, and also hopefully get you on to the Dungeons and Dragons episode as well at some point in time. That would be fantastic too. Dani, as always, thank you so very, very, very much. From either of you, please, the floor is yours for any last words and any last thoughts before we close it out.
No last word for me, but I'm stoked that Ilana's on regularly now.
Yeah, you and I both.
Yeah, it's great. I'm also very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you very much for all the work that goes into these. Having written reports on a regular basis, this is a lot of work. So I hugely appreciate it. Thank you. To everybody listening, have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a good afternoon and have a peaceful evening. And I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. And I will see you all on the dark side.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Dr. Dark Web. This show is brought to you by Cybersixgill, the threat intelligence company. If you would like to learn more, please feel free to follow or subscribe to Dr. Dark Web on your favorite podcast streamer. Or, as an alternative, you can always find us online at cybersixgill.com/podcast. You'll find all the latest episodes, goodies, nuggets of information, background, and probably some stickers or two. See you in the dark.